All right, welcome to 7 Shocking Things You Never Knew About Bitcoin. My name is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, and the most important thing about this is that if you disagree with anything that I'm about to say here, I encourage you to start your own video channel on my new alternative to YouTube. It's called Real.video. Real.video, it's a free speech, the censorship solution to YouTube. You can go there, you can create a video channel yourself. It launches in July. And if you don't like what I'm about to say, then I encourage you to create your own channel and you can argue the other side. And I will protect your right to speak. How's that sound? Is that fair? So that's what's cool about freedom of speech. You know, you don't have to agree with everybody. In fact, it's important to protect the speech of those who seem unpopular, especially when we're suffering under what I might call the madness of crowds when it comes to cryptocurrency. See, I see it as a tulip bulb mania, but maybe you see it as something different. And that's okay. And you have the right to speak your mind too. And I welcome you to Real.video. So actually, if you think about this, some of what I'm going to say here is really just kind of setting the stage. These are just some examples. In fact, over time, more and more, you're not going to hear me commenting so much on crypto or other specific topics, but rather just working on protecting your right to speak and encouraging others to speak. So a friend called me up the other day and he said, Mike, I'm thinking about getting into crypto mining. And I know that you have done some cryptocurrency mining and you actually made some money on that, didn't you? And I said, yeah, I did. And he said, well, what do you think about right now? Should I get into crypto mining right now? Because I've got some friends and they're telling me this is awesome, that we should all be mining crypto and that we're all going to do great if we just mine crypto starting now. And this is like, May 2018, right? That's when I'm recording this. It's May. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, 5 years ago, you could have really got in on Bitcoin. But today, different story. So here's what people need to know. Number one, that when you're mining Bitcoin, you're competing with all the other miners who are mining in China and mining in Iceland, or Greenland, or other places, and they have much cheaper mining costs than you do. It turns out that mining is made more difficult based on a difficulty algorithm that's built into the Bitcoin blockchain software. And what this does is it compensates. So if people start bringing a lot of mining power into the Bitcoin mining community, the difficulty gets much, much higher very rapidly, so that in essence, it slows down the mining because it forces more hash cycles, more computational cycles to take place in order to generate one Bitcoin. And so now you've got, like today, it takes 10 times more computational power, i.e. 10 times more electricity to generate one Bitcoin than it did, let's say, this is an estimate, 2 years ago. It might be only 1 year ago. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the difficulty history, but it's a valid explanation. It's getting more and more difficult. And when I got into Bitcoin mining, it was very easy to do so. You could buy some specialty, ASIC mining systems, mining rigs, and you could do mining, and it was profitable if you had cheap electricity, which I happen to have spare electricity from a solar array that was overproducing. So I just used the solar power for free, and it generated a lot of Bitcoin. If you have free electricity, why not, right? But I didn't have unlimited free electricity, or I would have done a lot more. I only had, I don't know, what was it, like 10 kilowatts or something in that range of extra juice to mine with. And so I just use it all, turning sunlight into Bitcoin, and then I spent the Bitcoin to buy gold. So in essence, I turned sunlight into physical gold, which is kind of cool. Who would ever thought you could turn the sun into gold? But I did it through Bitcoin, and it worked. But today, Bitcoin mining is so difficult, and you don't have the price increases that you've had historically through all those years. So the payoff just isn't there unless you have either practically free electricity or practically free cooling, because you're generating heat, of course, at the same time that you're consuming electricity. So you got to take care of cooling and you got to take care of your electric bill. And by the time most people add both of those things in, anywhere in America, especially places like Hawaii, where electricity, I think, is even more expensive, if I'm not mistaken, then it's costing you to mine Bitcoin. You're actually spending money. You're losing money to mine Bitcoin in most cases. China has, dirt cheap, super dirty coal-fired power plants where you can get electricity, I think, for maybe, 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour or something in that range. And that's dirt cheap. And using that, you can mine Bitcoin more profitably. And people do in China. But even a lot of those miners are getting out of the mining business too, because it's, the price of Bitcoin is fluctuating so much. But again, hey, if you disagree with what I'm saying, go to Real.video, create your own channel, and let me have it, okay? Just let me have it on there, because it's a free speech platform, and I welcome, pro-liberty, libertarian content. I welcome, anarchists who want to come on and talk about their views. I welcome crypto views. I welcome, biohackers for that matter. There are limits. Like we don't welcome terrorists to come on and recruit terrorists, and we don't welcome people to come on and teach other people how to make like suicide vests full of explosives and crap like that. But if you want to come on and talk about why you think Bitcoin is the best thing ever in the world, you're welcome to do so. Who knows? We might feature your video in an article about Bitcoin. You never know. Okay, point number 2. I only made it through 1 out of 7. This is insane. Point number 2. All Bitcoin transactions are publicly tracked, and they're not necessarily anonymous. So one of the big selling points of Bitcoin originally was, it's all anonymous, it's super secret, nobody knows that where you got your Bitcoins and so on. They're only anonymous if you mined those Bitcoins yourself and you originated them, and you have your own private protected wallet, which I did, by the way. So I had truly anonymous Bitcoins. But if you go to the bank, or if you buy Bitcoins with a credit card, guess what? Your credit card is linked to those Bitcoins. And because the blockchain is public, it's public, people, okay? Anyone, frankly, can trace where you've spent your Bitcoins and trace it all the way back through the blockchain to the bank, to the credit card transaction that you used to buy them. I mean, I shouldn't say anyone can trace it all the way back to your credit card. That would take, a law enforcement agency or a warrant. But anyone can trace the transaction history of every fraction of a Bitcoin that you've ever put your hands on. So Bitcoins are not anonymous, really, in most cases. And there are some very sophisticated algorithms that the IRS can use or governments can use to track where Bitcoins originate and to, come after people for taxes that they say you got to pay. Like Coinbase. Yeah, the online wallet in the United States. Coinbase requires you to give them your ID if you open a wallet there now. I think that's been the case for quite some time. So you're not anonymous. It's tied to your social security number, essentially. So that's the other thing. People think, Bitcoins are all anonymous and private. Not really. Not really. Okay, point number 3. We're making some progress here. And this is the thing. Almost everyone who is advocating Bitcoin right now has a conflict of interest. So in the same sense that, if your doctor is getting a kickback on statin drugs, and then you go to your doctor and he says, dude, you need statin drugs. I noticed that your cholesterol is 1.5 points high. You need statin drugs. But then your doctor doesn't tell you that they're getting a free trip to Hawaii, which is what doctors get often. Then you would think, that's a conflict of interest. Why is he pushing statin drugs on me when he's getting, a kickback on the statin drugs? It's pretty dishonest, right? Well, most people who are pushing Bitcoin right now are people who own Bitcoin, which means that the more demand they create, the higher their current holdings go. I'm not saying they're evil people. It's not some grand conspiracy. It's a conflict of interest. So the thing is I don't own any Bitcoin. Well, technically I own like 0.0001 or whatever it is, a few dollars worth of Bitcoin. I don't have any conflict of interest. So whether you buy or sell Bitcoin doesn't affect me. I'm not betting against Bitcoin, and I'm not betting in favor of Bitcoin. In fact, I'm completely out of cryptocurrency now because I'm sitting on physical gold, okay? Remember I turned sunlight into gold? And whatever happens to your crypto doesn't bother my gold. My gold is safe and sound right where it is, and it's not vanishing just because somebody is playing the crypto market. You see what I mean? There's some wisdom in that, by the way, that you might want to take advantage of. But a lot of people pushing crypto have almost become fanatics about it. There's a sense of like a religious fanaticism about it, where you can tell that the rationality is just gone. And that's very disturbing. If I see that in any area, in crypto or government or religion for that matter, when I see fanaticism that bypasses rationality, it's like big red flags going off. Ding, ding, ding. Wait a second. Take another look at this, because these people don't sound rational. They sound like zealots. If you think about it, sound like zealots. Sound like ISIS. Like ISIS crypto soldiers. Like if you don't buy Bitcoin, they're going to chop off your heads or something. But hey, again, if you don't like what I'm saying, create your own channel and you can argue the other side. And I look forward to that. Okay. Number four, Bitcoin transactions will always be slow because it's based on a consensus model of blockchain confirmations. And a lot of these take like 48 hours to clear. So let's say you go into Starbucks and then go up and try to buy a cup of coffee with your Bitcoin. And you're going to find that number one, Starbucks doesn't accept Bitcoin. And if you do some research, you'll find out the reason is because the transaction fee is worth about 500% more, or costs 500% more than the value of the cup of coffee that you're trying to buy. And, it would take 48 hours. So I guess under Bitcoin, you would have to stand there chatting with the annoying barista for 48 hours and going back and forth to the restroom multiple times to wait for your cup of coffee to come. 48 hours later, it would cost you $25 in transaction fees, and then you could pay by Bitcoin. And then I'm sure someone would have a press release. Oh, this dude bought a cup of coffee with Bitcoin. Whoa. Meanwhile, 1,000 other customers just handed over a credit card or $5 in cash, and they got their coffee, pretty much instantly. So how is Bitcoin that amazing for everyday transactions? It's not. It's really not that amazing at all. Okay, point number five. Bitcoin is backed by nothing. Bitcoin is backed by nothing. And I remember when people were talking about Bitcoin and they said, the fiat currency dollar is backed by nothing. You should use our digital currency instead, because it's also backed by nothing. It's like, really? What an amazing idea. Because I thought the dollar was backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government, which also has the power to extract wealth from people at gunpoint using confiscatory tax policies. That sounds like something that actually is backed. Through coercion, of course, but it's backed. Whereas your Bitcoin, you don't have an army of federal agents with guns that go take money from people to fund your Bitcoin system. It's backed by nothing. And it can collapse overnight because it has no assets. It has no intellectual property. You don't have a vault. You don't have any gold backing Bitcoin. In fact, the Bitcoin company doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a Bitcoin company, is there? There's no Bitcoin corporation. There's no Bitcoin support line where you call and say, hey, these hackers stole all my Bitcoin wallet. Can I have my wallet back? There is no line. People just laugh at you. How'd you get your wallet stolen, you moron? Oh, well, I invested. I had an online wallet with Mt. Gox or some other online wallet where the creators of the wallet absconded with everybody's Bitcoins and ran off to the Cayman Islands to change their names and spend your Bitcoins on hookers and blow, basically sitting on the beach for the rest of their lives, which is probably what happened in the Mt. Gox scenario. So there you go. There's nothing backing Bitcoin. You can't trade the stock. You don't get any dividends. It's not like investing in a corporation where you own something. You have a share of a corporation. You buy Bitcoin, you know what you've really bought? You bought an entry in a shared spreadsheet, a ledger that's been replicated all over the world. So everybody knows that you have that line in that spreadsheet, but you get nothing in return other than the right to sell that line to somebody else. In other words, it's pure speculation. But again, if you disagree, create a channel on Real.video and argue the other side. All right, number 6, we're going to get through this. Bitcoin. They say that Bitcoin has scarcity. I think they said there's only supposed to be 21 million coins created over all time. And mining Bitcoins is hard because of all the computational power, right? You have to spend a fortune on electricity and cooling to mine Bitcoins. So there's scarcity. Well, the scarcity is nothing but a software limit. And thus, because it's software, it can be changed, it can be updated, and it has been multiple times. Because we've had Bitcoin forks, right? Hard forks. We have multiple different versions of Bitcoin already, proving that the software can be changed by sufficiently motivated groups. Meanwhile, gold, actual physical gold, has physical scarcity. You know why? Because there hasn't been a golden meteor land on planet Earth any time in the history of human civilization. And according to people who look through telescopes, there is no golden meteor that's about to hit the planet, which means that getting gold requires extracting it out of the ground, which takes a tremendous amount of physical work, requiring fuel, diesel fuel for the most part, to power the machines that do the mining and digging. Diesel fuel has a cost, which means that gold mining will always have a cost, which means that gold can't suddenly become dirt cheap. Gold can't suddenly increase in a massive supply. Gold holds its value because it has real value. In electronics, in medicine, gold. Heck, we use gold in our lab, by the way, for a number of, it's on parts in our mass spec instruments for the lab analysis. Gold is an element of the universe. And if you look at the table of elements and you see, oh, look, Au, that's gold, Au. It's right there. It's on the web, the table of elements. If you look on that whole table, there is no element called Bitcoin. You know why? Because Bitcoin isn't real. It doesn't exist. It's not an element. Gold's been around for a few billion years, actually. It's created through exploding stars, right? Nuclear fusion and fission processes recombine protons, neutrons, and electrons to create heavier elements, such as gold, which is one of the heavier elements, certainly not the heaviest. Lead's heavier. But you create gold through exploding stars and cosmic events. But no one has been able to figure out how to create gold here on Earth, have they? There isn't a gold machine where someone feeds in, let's say, carbon, and it spits out gold, because if someone had such a machine, gold would be worthless because anybody could create it. You see what I mean? Gold has actual scarcity, physical scarcity, because of the laws of physics. Bitcoin has artificial scarcity because of the temporary agreements of software engineers who are driven by greed, by the way, and can change their rules at any time. So that's the truth about scarcity and Bitcoin versus gold. I'd rather have an element of the cosmos, frankly. Thank you very much. I'll take gold or copper, or platinum for that matter, maybe some silver. Something with value. Let's see, some rare earth elements. How about that? How about some of those rare earth elements that are used in solar manufacturing and wind generators and so on? Those are valuable too. Bitcoin, pure speculation. It's not even real. Okay, last point here. Point number 7. We're going to make it through this list. And again, if you disagree with any point here, maybe you have a correction. Maybe you're like, Mike, but you forgot to say this and that and this other thing over here. And no, your number was off over there. You just create your own video channel. That's why I'm doing this. I'm demonstrating what I want you to do. And I support your right to speak freely, even if you disagree with me on all these points. But point number 7, all your Bitcoins can be stolen by the first nation that achieves quantum computing, which, by the way, quantum computers already exist at very low numbers of qubits. The NIST in Boulder, Colorado, for example, is working on quantum computers. I think they have some. I think they've already developed some. And other countries, China is working, putting a lot of money into quantum computing. Quantum computing, instead of using bits that only store either a 1 or a 0, but not both at the same time, quantum computers have qubits that can store simultaneously superimposed states of both 1s and 0s. They coexist. And if you have let's say an 8-bit quantum computer, then you have 256 different possible states in a normal binary digital system from 0s and 1s, because 2 to the power of 8 is 256, of course. But if you have a qubit computer, it can store all 256 combination states simultaneously at the same time. Now, without getting into crazy math, because frankly, I don't understand all the quantum math either, but if you have a quantum computer that's 256 bits capable, it can almost instantly solve encryption systems that are built on 256-bit encryption, even, for example, AES encryption or RSA or different types of encryption that's out there. But they're all based on the same basic premise of factoring very large numbers, right? Very difficult numbers, and using prime numbers as the factors. So this means that the nation that develops quantum computing first will be able to crack everybody's Bitcoin wallet and steal all their Bitcoins, essentially, by faking the system. In other words, the reason encryption is built into Bitcoin is because it protects your wallet. And if someone can crack all the encryption of all the Bitcoin wallets all over the world, then they can steal all the Bitcoins. And guess who's close to doing that? China. Russia's working on it, the United States is working on it, and so on. This means that Bitcoin wallets are really not impervious to being stolen, even just by cracking the encryption. But the gold that I have, sitting on my desk right now, that gold can't be hacked by China. The gold can't be hacked by the United States government. Someone can try to steal it, I suppose, if they want to dodge bullets. They can try, but they can't get it for free, and they can't get it remotely, and they can't get it over the internet. But your Bitcoins can probably be stolen over the internet, especially when quantum computing comes online, which seems to be not so far away. There could be a breakthrough as well, something that we can't anticipate, where suddenly one country has the ability to decrypt 128, 256-bit, maybe 512-bit encryption systems, which means, by the way, they'll also break all the military communication and nuclear submarine transmissions and pretty much all banking and finance as well. So perhaps losing your Bitcoin might be the least of your concerns. In essence, whichever country gets quantum computing first will rule our world, which is why they're all working on it. It's kind of like the rush for artificial intelligence. AI systems are also believed to be so powerful that every country that has any kind of a budget for military weaponry right now is pouring money into AI development, because the first country that creates really self-aware AI systems will also probably dominate the world for perhaps centuries to come, or at least until a giant solar flare takes down the power grid. One or the other will happen. But I'm not going to go into more detail on this, just to say, look, there are risks to Bitcoin that most Bitcoin people have no clue about. Systemic risks, such as quantum computing, for example. Security risks. There can be vulnerabilities that are spotted in the in wallets. That's happened. There was a DNS attack, I think, just a few weeks ago, where somebody spoofed the DNS of an online wallet, and by spoofing the DNS, which is relatively easy to do, you don't have to have an encryption system or a decryption system, they were able to steal, I believe, millions of dollars out of online wallets just by spoofing DNS. It was quite clever, actually. But it just shows that there are vulnerabilities to your wallet, your Bitcoin wallet, that you probably never thought about. And the reason why is because, I'm just going to say this frankly, you don't really understand how Bitcoin works. And the reason I know that is because I've talked to people about Bitcoin who own Bitcoin and who advocate Bitcoin, and to this day, there hasn't been a single person who could accurately describe to me the encryption protocols, how blockchain actually works, the whole thing, top to bottom. They don't know. And frankly, even I don't know how all of it works, but I know enough to know more than most people who have Bitcoin. And they don't even know, obviously, as much as I do about Bitcoin, and they're all gung-ho Bitcoin fanatics, and they're frankly delusional. It's like buying something that you don't understand. It's like buying railroad stocks in the 1800s and not understanding the systemic risk to railroad stocks, or it's like buying tulip bulbs. You know, what year was it? Wasn't that in the 1600s? And thinking, oh, this is the most amazing thing. We can trade tulip bulbs with each other. And we'll just imagine that they're worth more and more money. We'll just trade each other back and forth tulip bulbs with higher and higher price tags on them, and we'll call ourselves wealthy. And it doesn't work, actually, because eventually, speculation collapses because there's no inherent value in the system. And these people, they try to explain to me how Bitcoin works, and they don't understand it. They have no clue, frankly, how Bitcoin works. Think about it. Most people buying Bitcoin today, they have a hard time. They don't even know. What would be another good example? I mean, they probably don't even understand. Let me just put it this way. These are people who probably have a hard time calculating a 15% tip at a restaurant, okay? These are not. I'm not saying everybody's like that in Bitcoin, but there's a lot of stupid people who are buying Bitcoin too, driving up the price because they think it's the next big thing. And there's people who are stupid that like they never made it in life, and they think that Bitcoin is the one big thing that they're finally going to have their payday. And so they're jumping on board without understanding it, without knowing answers to questions that they should be asking themselves, but frankly, not even informed enough to ask the right questions. Like, hey, is there a systemic vulnerability? Is there a systemic risk? Is this really anonymous? How does encryption actually work? What's the crypto part of currency? What is that actually? How does that work? Are online wallets safe? Is my ID attached to this? Are transactions anonymous or are they tracked? What are the tax consequences? How much do I pay for electricity if I buy a mining rig? What's the payoff? I mean, I've talked to Bitcoin people who don't even understand. They don't even have a spreadsheet, okay? To say, like, if I invest this much money in a mining rig and I pay this much per kilowatt hour for electricity, and then I have to pay this much more for cooling to get rid of the excess heat, then this is my bottom line. They've never even done a spreadsheet on that. Just Excel, just a spreadsheet. They have no idea what their bottom line is. And if they did the math, the bottom line is pretty bad. Frankly, it's like, minus $500 a month in Bitcoin. So wait a minute. So you mean I'm spending $5,000 a month in electricity, and I'm getting $4,500 a month in Bitcoin? Wow. Oh, and this hardware also costs another $5,000 on top of that. What an amazing business model you have. Did you come up with that all by yourself? That's amazing. Did you see that on Craigslist? Is that where you found that? Wow. Are you jumping on the bandwagon because you got a bunch of friends who also can't do math who told you they're getting rich because they haven't seen their electric bill yet? Because that's what it sounds like to me. But again, if you disagree, create your own video channel. I want to hear your argument. I want to hear your argument where you say that Bitcoin is awesome and it makes great financial sense and it's an asset that's better than gold, and electricity is free and software always works, and optimism always wins out when it comes to investments because hope is the most important factor. Yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see your video where you talk about the Bitcoin hope factor and you argue for hope. And I want to see your technical analysis of the Bitcoin peaks and the rising and falling, where you draw a bunch of silly lines on your charts and you say, see, it's going to go up. I drew a bunch of lines. That's what I want to see, because that's going to be funny as shit. And we'll feature that on Real.video, by the way. It's going to be hilarious. I can't wait, frankly, because I am not entertained enough by this world. Even with all the insanity and all the craziness and all the stupidity out there, it's just not getting the entertainment threshold that I need, frankly. I need a little bit more juice from people who just make me roll on the floor with laughter. And so I'm counting on you. Please help me out here. All right? Just putting some words out there to get people to think for themselves. And frankly, that's what I want you to do too on Real.video. So the opportunity's there. Let's see what you're going to do with it. Thanks for watching. Thank you for watching. If you want to support our mission, visit us at healthrangerstore.com for the world's largest selection of lab-verified superfood and nutritional products for healthy living. It's at healthrangerstore.com.